about that. So if you see here, I have white. I'm going to have more yellow, sorry. I'm gonna have yellow, and then I have my red here. You know, you can use cad red again. Cad yellow is fine, lemon yellow is fine, Napo crimson is fine for the red, and then we just have our tea white. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use, let's see what I have here. Make sure my brush is clean. No, this is a clean brush. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take mostly white. And I'm putting the white, and I'm putting it here. Okay, see that? Okay, then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take a tiny bit of red. I'm gonna take too much red to show you what not to do. You see how red that is? Let's move it over here. I think you could see better, I'm sorry. Okay, you see how red that is? We don't wanna use that much red. So if that happens, you don't wanna take more white and do this, because you'll be using your whole tube of white paint because the red is so strong. All of the dark colors are strong. So if that happens, what you want to do is you want to have always mostly your white, and you'd be moving this with your palette knife. I'm doing this at demo, my students already know that. So I'm going to take a little dot, and you look at that dot. You can barely see it, it's so little. It's a tiny little dot. And I'm going to move it in here, and usually again I would be using my palette knife. And once I get this color, I'm going to take a tiny bit of yellow and I'm going to move it in here. And I'm going to move it little by little until I get, let's move it over here, this pale color for the skin, okay? Now, the thing is, if I want to darken this, I just add more yellow. Let's do it now. And red, but I'm gonna add red first, and I'm gonna make it like a really pink, right? Like if somebody was sunburned. And then I'm going to add more yellow to it, and a little bit more yellow, and a little bit more yellow, and I get this color, okay? So this could be the highlight, and maybe that's the main person's face, or vice versa, or maybe they're very pale, where that's the highlight and that's the shadow. So the next thing is, if I want to darken this color, I have to make brown first, okay? So I have two ways of doing the complexion if someone is darker and brown. What I can do is I can take mostly red, let's move it over here, and I'm gonna have a little bit of green, and I'm gonna mix it together, and I am going to get this brown, okay? Let's say they're a little darker. Okay, once I have this brown, it's very dark. It could work for a person's complexion or a shadow in here. If I want to lighten the brown, I just have to add a lot of yellow. And do you see how that lightens that already? Right? If I want to lighten it more, I'd have to even add more yellow. Okay? And I'll show you over here on the white paper because it looks quite different. Okay, now I'm going to add a bunch of yellow here. We're just going to have it a lighter brown. Okay, once I have that light brown, I can take a tiny bit of that light brown and I can add it to this pale, and it can drastically change the color. So let's do that. I'm going to take some of this light brown and I'm going to slowly add it in here, and now I'm getting this olive color. Do you see that? Now I have this kind of olive color. I can make it more redder if I want to. Like say the person was, you know, of a redder complexion, I can put more red, and then I can go back and put more yellow, a tiny bit more red, more yellow. And let's move it here so it's like an orange. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to add this brown to here. Okay, and this could be a wonderful shadow. So let's move it back over here, and I have this. In other words, and I'm going to change this now. Now the person is pale, right, or olive, but now they're becoming this nice brown here, okay? So and I can darken it. So I have a couple of options. I can start with red and green and light lighten it by adding yellow. Or I could start with mostly white, a tiny bit of red, and a tiny bit of yellow, and start with pale and move the browns into the pale. But do you see that somebody that has brown skin or tan skin would still have maybe a pale underlayer, or they could have yellow underlayers. Just like someone with a darker complexion of dark brown might also have pale, yellow, a little bit of blues, or even some purples. So I could add blue to this if I wanted to darken this, like if I was doing a person's shadow. If I added a tiny bit of blue in here, do you see how that becomes just a little bit darker with the shadow? But it would work. Then look how dark that, for the person's complexion, that's more natural. Sometimes somebody that might be brown or pale might also have green, right? So I could also add green, to the brown, and I get this darker, nice shadow, which would work for the person, right? Now let's move this into here. This would drastically change too, okay? And now it's like somebody that's almost my color, right? It's got all these colors going on in here. So this is a mixture of pale, we saw. It has brown, it has yellow, and it has red, right? And all of here. So it's good to play around with the colors. Okay.